one if necessary.
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies, she is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her.
Well, let's speak now to former Republican congressional nominee and president of political strategy firm Valcor LLC. That's Matt Mowers. Matt, thank you very much for joining us on BBC News today. So with your political strategy hat on, what is the best strategy for Kamala Harris at this point as she pivots her campaign?
Well, she has to do a few of the things she has already been doing, which is, raising significant sums of money, injecting energy into her race by consolidating some voter groups that were actually drifting away from President Biden, voters of color, younger voters. These were core constituencies of the Democratic Party that the Biden-Harris ticket was having some challenges pulling together. If you look at recent polling, Donald Trump, former President Trump, is getting upwards of almost a quarter of the African-American vote in a number of states. He's getting a majority of the Hispanic vote in a number of states. So her first job is going to be to try to re-solidify that Democratic coalition. The challenge with that is that she still has a number of the policies and the baggage that come from the administration. You look at polling from even before the debate between President Biden and President Trump. Her numbers, her approval rating was actually lower than President Biden's very often. And so she's going to have to find a way to reintroduce herself to the American people while also re-energizing her party.
I'm also looking at some polls taken before Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the race, and she was level or doing slightly better than Joe Biden in those particular polls. But I do want to ask you about those crucial swing states that we talk about so much when it comes to U.S. elections, places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and so on. They are going to be absolutely crucial, aren't they? And what, if you were advising Kamala Harris, would you say to her about winning those states?
Well, first, she's going to have to pick a vice presidential nominee, which can try to help her win those states. I mean, part of the reason Joe Biden was able to win those states in 2020 was he did have this working class appeal. He was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He talked, in a blue collar speak that was able to resonate with some voters. Kamala Harris, being from San Francisco, California, being from more the left wing of her party, is going to have to find a complement to her ticket that's able to actually try to be competitive in a number of these states. Now, she'll have other benefits that Joe Biden didn't. I'd imagine she'll do slightly better with voters of color than Joe Biden would. She might be able to energize younger voters to come back out, and that's going to help her in some of those key states. But ultimately, she's still going to have to figure out a way to crack into reaching out to the working class voters. Much of her record is kind of out of step from some of these states, in particular around energy issues. She had opposed fracking consistently as a United States senator and as vice president. That is a very difficult policy position to take in a state like Pennsylvania, which is really what this race is probably going to come down to at the end of the day.
Let's talk then about the Republican Party and Donald Trump and how they are going to respond to this. Obviously, it's not set in stone yet that Kamala Harris will be the nominee, the candidate, I should say, for the Democrats. But let's, for the purposes of this interview, assume that she is. How will the Republicans respond to that?
Well, they're going to do a few different things. One, they are going to bring back her voting record. I mean, again, she represents the state of California. This is one of the most democratic states, one of the most liberal states in America. Even if she was voting in line with her constituents, those constituents are very different than the folks who are living in those key battleground states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan, not to mention even some of the more blue states that we've seen competitive. A new poll came out yesterday showing Donald Trump leading her in the state of New Hampshire, as well as very close in Virginia. And so what they're going to do is bring back out that old voting record. That's number one. Two, the number one job that Kamala Harris has been identified with since she's been vice president was when President Biden asked her to help get to the root causes of migration and handle the border issue. Republicans have consistently called her Biden's border czar. That's not an issue that the American people are on the side of the administration with. They overwhelmingly disapprove of the job that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done on border security issues, seeing the surge of migration across the southern border. And so they're also going to remind voters of that job, not to mention the fact that they are still going to try to draw fissures into the Democratic Party between some of the base and some of the more traditional, let's call it establishment Democrats who have not necessarily been lockstep with Kamala Harris along the way.
Matt, thank you very much for your thoughts on this story today. Matt Mowers, former Republican congressional nominee, president of political strategy firm Valcor LLC. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.